Good morning, America. This is the Professor, Billy Mitchell, coming to you from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Today we're going to talk about basic sheet metal, or sheet metal 101. Just like the video, this is the third video in the series that I'm doing on YouTube. So basic sheet metal works. Anybody can do it. I'm going to show you some basic cheap tools that you can pick up, some of the stuff you can pick up used. Learning objectives. At the end of this video, you should have basic knowledge of techniques and tools that you will need to do sheet metal work. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're working on the race car. We have a couple weeks off. I won't be working on the hot rod till next week. I'm going to go over some geometry stuff in the front of the car, caster, camber, bump steer, stuff like that. So tune in next week and we'll go over that. So what am I building here? You might see this. This is beautiful. This bike was originally wrecked. It's a 2015 CBR 500R that I bought from a neighbor that wrecked it. I replaced the front end on it. I cut everything apart, took it all apart, took everything down, had a powder coated the gold wheels, the paint. So what we first did with the sheet metal is I went and bought another tank, just like this one. This bike uses fuel injection, which takes a special pump along with the sending unit and all that stuff. I wanted to be able to reuse that, so I went and bought another tank that wasn't damaged, which is on the bike now, and I didn't like the shape and how big it was. So as you can tell, I cut about 4 inches out of the actual tank, the original tank. Then I welded it all together, TIG welded it, pressure tested it, made sure it wasn't going to leak. Then I took it to a friend of mine who did this awesome paint job on it. This is House of Color Candy Green. It's a metal flake. It's also got the gold on it. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but it's the old style gold leaf paint on it. All that's left to do is to pinstripe and shoot the final clear over the top of it. So what are we doing today on sheet metal? You will notice that there's a kick panel right here. This theme of this bike is a 60s style cafe racer. So I didn't want any molded plastic on it if I could help it. So the fairing was already wrecked and everything, so I decided that I was going to take all of that off. I put the little cafe thing in the front, had it painted to match the tank. It's got the race car number on it. It's also got some really cool stuff on it that my family understands. We won't go into that. I also changed the rear suspension to more of a Ducati style, older Ducati Italian bike theme with the Olin double adjustable shocks. I cut up the swing arm. I mounted the shock on top. You can adjust it on the fly, compression, rebound. It's even got a ride height adjuster on it, everything. Super, super cool. I also added to the frame here, down here, there's a circle that I used to use my tubing bender to make this bobber seat look like it's hanging in the air. I love that. I saw that on another bike. I thought that was really cool. So this is actually off a Harley bobber style bike. So what are we going to make today? This kick panel. First thing when you're doing sheet metal, you have to come up with some kind of a pattern or an idea. You can use, tape measure, yardstick, what have you. I do one or two things. I'll either take and use cardboard to make something, or in this case, I had a piece of the old fairing and I cut it up to the basic shape, kind of what I wanted to look at, and I put it on the bike first, and then I used it as a template to get the basic shape. So what are we going to learn today? I'm going to show you the tools and the techniques that you need to do this. There's several different things going on here. You have the basic aluminum, which was just a piece of sheet metal, right, that you can buy down at the store. I broke the edges. I have a little break. That's pretty easy. If you don't know how to do that, there's tons of videos on YouTube. The things that really make it stand out are these bead rolls. This is a 1/4 inch bead roll, and these little dimple dies right here that I picked up from Summit. That makes it look awesome. Custom. Not a lot of people can do that. Super, super easy. So I'm going to show you how to do that and what the tools you use to actually complete that technique. So let's get started. We're going to go over to the fab bench, talk about tools first, and then I'll show you how to use them. Going to go ahead and move the tank out of the way so we got some room. So now, first thing we're going to do, we got a piece of sheet metal here. You can see this. This is 030. It's not painted. The stuff that I use on the interior and on the race car, it's easier if I buy the painted stuff. You can buy it in any color now, so you don't have to worry about painting the car when you go to repair it, because time is an essence. Painting is a pain in the ass. You got to take it somewhere. If you do it at your house, it's going to be a huge mess. So if you can buy this stuff painted already, it's great. In this case, the panel that we're going to make, I haven't decided whether I'm going to leave it brushed aluminum or if I'm going to take it down and have it powder coated black to match, so it kind of blends in. Powder coated lasts a little bit better. It won't scratch as much. It'll be more durable. So that's why I didn't go ahead and buy the black already. So what are we using here? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut out, you're going to lay your template on top of there, and you're going to trace out with a Sharpie your deal. Then you're going to take, and you got several different types of shears. This is an electrical shear. This is super easy, powerful, it's quick. I love this tool. The other way you can go, if you already have a compressor, these are cheaper. These aren't that expensive. You can also buy this at Harbor Freight along with the nibbler. They have them there. Harbor Freight tools work great for just hobby stuff. If you're doing it for a living, you might want to upgrade to something a little bit more, but they're great for what we do. So this one you plug in, it's basically the same type of head unit. It's good to go. Hand tools, you got your shears, right? The yellow ones are for straights. They make them different lengths. Then the red ones are for going right with the right hand. They also make a green one that you can go less, but I tend not to use those, so I keep it simple and just buy what I like to use. It's cheaper, right? Other thing I bought is these. These are vice grips, but they have a little flat deal on them, so you can bend stuff back. These are real handy when you're doing wheel wells on the race car or what have you. So these are really, really nice to have. All these tools, just so you know, I've had about 20 years, so you're going to get plenty of use out of them. My philosophy was I could buy the tools, learn how to do it, which I enjoy doing, or I could pay somebody to do it and then continue to pay them. As we know, race cars are going to continually get damaged, so for me it's a lot cheaper and easier if I just do it myself. So the hole here, this is really, really cool. You can see that it's not just a hole, it's got like a flange on it. So when you go through and you do bead rolls, or you do in this case a dimple die, it makes it stronger. So if you were to take this panel and just put it on the car, it's going to vibrate. So if you put rolls in it, or you put brakes in it, or you do the dimple dies, it looks cool, but at the same time it's very functional because it'll actually make it stiffer. So what I do, you'll notice on this panel that I made for the bike, there's two different sizes. There's a 2-inch and a 3-inch. So the ones I bought from Summit, it's a 2-piece unit. You can use it as a dimple die, or you can use it to actually make a hole. Okay, so it's super, super easy to use. Before I had those, I had just knockouts for electrician knockouts. You can buy these off of the internet, they're everywhere. This makes a hole, so if you need to make a hole in a panel so you can stick a socket through on your jack bolt or what have you, works great. Okay, it's this one's about 1.25 inches. I got them all the way up to 2 inches. This is what I started with because I got them cheap. They're very functional. The dimple dies are the step up. So if you buy a 2-inch, that's the first one I would buy because it's the most common. You can also use it for your gauges too. Most of your gauges are 2 1/8 or 2 1/16. So if you make the hole there, it's going to make it nice and tight and look really, really clean when you put it together. Other things, unibit. Okay, you're going to have to make a hole for these dies. So a unibit that goes at least to a 1/2 inch, super, super easy to use. You're going to have drills. You can go with cordless. You're going to need an 1/8 inch drill bit and a 3/16 if you're going to use rivets, because those are the two most common rivets. 1/8 inch I'm going to use on this. And you'll notice that I have these little Clecos on here. These are from the aircraft industry. You can buy those from Summit. They're not expensive, super, super easy. I keep them in a can along with the pliers so that you can pull them on and off. What that allows you to do is mock everything up until you're all the way done. You decide what you're going to do with it, and then you can put your rivets in, so you're not drilling rivets in and out. Some people will use self-tappers. I like this, super, super easy. I use it to hang the bodies on the race car. So you'll use them for everything for sheet metal, okay? So let's talk about some of the techniques. First thing you do is you put your pattern on there. You're going to trace it out. You're going to take your shears here. You can do it by hand, but it's just going to kill your hand. Invest in either an air one or electric one. You're going to cut it out. Always make things a little bit big, okay, because things are going to shrink when you go to make it, or if you're 1/8 of an inch off, 1/16 of an off, at least you got a little bit of material. It's easier to take it away than it is to put it back on, okay? So bigger's better, like always, right? So first thing, you're going to want to put gloves on. Sheet metal, when you start cutting it, all the little curly cues that come off, all the little edges is like razor blades, okay? Or like a can, when you cut a can apart, super sharp. Always wear gloves when you're working on sheet metal. Okay, so you're going to trace it out. You're going to take your tool here, you're going to cut it. You can take your hand tool, you can cut it with this. Super, super easy, right? Piece of cake, okay? Now, once you get the general shape how you want it, the next step that I will do is I will go through and I will do my break edges and make sure that the panel fits. You'll notice at one side I laid it over and just overlapped it because that's going to butt up against the tank right here. And that's also a top edge, so I wanted it nice and smooth. And then the other edges I bent in to make them strong, and then at the same time a little more aerodynamic, right? So that's simple. Get your shape, get your brakes done. I got a little brake, it's off camera. I didn't want to have to move the camera. I'm doing this by myself. Brakes are super easy, they're cheap. You can buy a 36 inch. I have a 52 inch. You're going to use the brake to make your doghouse for the front of your radiator, all kinds of stuff, okay? So even if you're not doing the interior, your doghouse is going to get messed up all the time. Whether you hit somebody in the front, then you have a pattern, right? And it's going to get easier as you go along because you're not doing it from scratch. Don't be afraid to remake panels. Give yourself plenty of time. Get cardboard. It's all about, you know, making the fit right. And as you'll notice, once you have a pattern, when you start making things, they'll actually get easier to make, and it's going to look nicer too the more you make them, because you learn off of it and you can adjust your measurements. So with that said, I overlapped it. I did my 90 up front. I did a little 45 on the back side, cut it out. I even put a little bracket on the bottom that's going to go onto the existing bracket there. I'll weld some little tabs on for the top on the frame once we take everything back apart. I still have to blow this all apart, finish up the wiring, and get everything back together for its final assembly before we put it on the road. So next step is I will trace out my bead rolls. So let's talk about bead rolls. I use a little deal here. If you are going to do a continuous bead roll, you are going to find something that I always like to use a piece of tape on your edges, okay? You want to start, so let's take this over here. We're going to roll over here to the bead roller. I bought this at Harbor Freight. You can tell this thing's old. It's like 20 years old. I've modified it. I cut this down so that it's easier to use. So one-person operation. They make some of these that are electric. I mean, different dies you can buy. You can invest a ton of money into a bead roller. I keep it simple. It's only an 1/8 inch. You're going to adjust this. You want to keep track of how many turns you're doing, and I even mark one end of it so that they're all the same depth, because the more you actually tighten this down, the deeper the roll is going to be. So I typically go one turn. I'll bring it up to where it's tight, and then I'll go a turn, because it's literally going to press down in the metal. So let's do this real quick. I'm going to show you. You put this here, you put it on your line that you already made, how you want your deal. It's tight right there. I'm going to go another turn. Never start at an edge. Start about 2 inches from the edge, work to the edge, and then go back and do the other way. It'll look a lot cleaner. Don't start at an edge, because you can't see where it actually starts because of the radius of the dies. So let's go ahead. You're going to roll this. Okay, I'm just showing you an example. Piece of cake. We're going to loosen it back up, and you will notice, I'll come up close, this is the roll right here. I always mark it from the back. When you're doing your panels, mark top, back, front. Really, really easy to get disoriented, especially when you're doing interior panels on a modified, because they all look the same. They're all pretty much rectangular. The body's pretty much square, right, or rectangular. So you always want to mark your edges, arrows. Nothing pisses you off. We get all the way done, you do your rolls, and you find out you put your rolls on the wrong side. Done it 100 times, okay? So that's it. That put that little roll there. You'll notice it made it stronger, right? Okay, so now the dimple dies. How do we make the dimple dies? I'm going to show you that real quick. First thing you're going to do, you are going to drill a pilot hole. So I'm going to drill a hole where I want the die to go. I'm going to switch out the bit, put the unibit in it, and I'm going to open it up to just big enough to where the bolt that pulls the die together will fit through. So now I made my hole, my pilot, so it ain't going to walk on me. Oh, there we go. And we're going to, oh, I didn't get it tight enough. So let's fix that real quick. As you can tell, everything always goes the way it is. Make sure it's tight. Let's drill our hole. There we go. Now, perfect hole. Now, what we're going to do, you'll notice this thing has got several pieces to it. You need to make sure that you have it in the right way. The way you want the edge to go typically is towards the bottom or the inside. Otherwise, it's going to catch you, right? So you got to make sure. What I do is go through and mark the dies. Really, really easy to screw up, especially when you're in a hurry or when you get tired. So put it in there, get it started. Now this one's really, really cool because it's going to actually cut it and put the dimple in all in one. You can buy them to where it just puts the dimple. Don't suggest that. Pay the little extra money. The dies are about $100 a piece from Summit. Free shipping. Okay, now you take your socket, wrench, and you just go clockwise. All the way tight, knock it out. Okay. See it cut it? See that? It cut it. And it also put this really, really cool dimple in there. See that? Super, super strong, looks cool. And that's how you do that. Really, really easy, right? Once you have the right tools, you can make this. Now I'll probably remake this at a little bit thicker because I want it thick, so that it's sturdy, and also at the same time it's going to keep some of the heat off of whoever's riding the bike. But I wanted the holes here for two reasons. One, I wanted to be able to showcase the frame and the openness. That's kind of how I'm doing everything. I want it open. I want to see all the mechanical stuff. You can call it steam pump or whatever the hell it is. Basically, I want people to see my fab work. I want them to see the shock. We're going to showcase that very, very expensive shock. So once you've made your dimple dies, this is a 3-inch, this is a 2-inch. I got my rolls in there, got my brakes in there. Now the next step is you're going to just mount it. So you're going to have to come up with some tabs. I will go back later. Like I said, for now, I'm just kind of mocking everything up. Looks pretty good. I'll probably take it and have a powder coated black so it matches everything. And then at that point, I got to make one for the other side too. I'm also going to make a little dash panel up in there. This bike has a really, really cool LED dash that came, as part of the OEM deal. So I'm going to make a little dash that goes up in there. So don't be afraid to do sheet metal work. Take your time. I can't say it enough. Don't get frustrated. You're going to screw it up. Typically your first go around, even if you have patterns, isn't going to be perfect. So don't just buy extra material. Just plan on remaking things a couple times, especially when you're learning. Don't get discouraged. Everybody's been through it. I've been through it. I still screw up, okay? I'm going to remake that panel even though most people would be like, oh, that looks great. Well, I have OCD, so I want everything to be perfect, even though we all know it's a motorcycle. It's going to fall over at some point, right? Hopefully my grandson ain't on it when it does it. But he's really into bikes. I try and support him with that. He races motocross. He's only 4. Talon. This is the name of the bike. That's his favorite color. He's my monkey. There's a monkey theme on top of it. It's got the race number. Building this for him, so hopefully he'll be able to hang on to it for a while. And so it should be a really, really fun bike to drive because it's super lightweight now. And we lowered the center of mass with the batteries and all the weight. So this thing should really be fun to ride and be super fast. So with that said, we're going to wrap it up today. Like I told you guys earlier, I'm going to be making another race car video next week. Please like and share. Do me a favor right now. Check the boxes, you know, YouTube, how they are with the logarithms. The more people that like and share it and prescribe, the more people that can see it. So if you can go in there, I'm not making any money off this stuff. I'm just trying to help out you guys. My philosophy is the more people, we got to build the sport. So the more you can do yourself like I can, the more you can afford to do it. This stuff's getting ridiculously expensive to pay people and even the materials. So the more you can do it yourself, it's just time. You can be out in the garage, watching the game, whatever it is while you're working on your car. So tune in next week. On Wednesday, I'll be on the podcast for the Racers Show with Mike Fox. And then I'll also be posting that video on the YouTube channel on how to do caster, camber, bump, steer, tow, all that in the front of your car. So hope everybody has a great weekend. The Knights are playing tonight. I hope they beat Edmonton. They're here in town. I'm looking forward to going the game. And God bless America, and happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. So have a great weekend.